Hey there, ink fans. This is Brian Goulet of the Goulet Pen Company and inkduo.com. I'm excited to say that I finally think I've found a way that I can make ink reviews work for me. I've tried them several times in the past and I've gotten a few done. I've never really been able to find my rhythm and I end up losing steam, overcommitting myself in certain areas of the reviews and not making a sustainable review format for myself. So I think I finally nailed down something that's going to work for me, that's going to work for you, be a little entertaining, and be informative as well. So I'm going to explain what my format is and how it's going to be able to give me a good idea of the inks and also be able to help you out and explain as I've learned about the inks. So I'm going to go over that format for you right here. Alright, so here we are checking out my very first of my new format of ink reviews. I'm going to stick to kind of a basic format. I'm going to use number 16 dot pad for all these reviews. Depending on if I use different pens and so on, I may go to multiple sheets, but the number 16 I really like because the formatting fits really well on the blog, and I like this paper. So let me explain all the different components we have here. This was a sample review that I did, just basically trying to get down my formatting of Lamy Turquoise, and I list it here at the top. So the first thing I'm going to try to list is some basic information about what's going on. So for example, I got Lamy Turquoise and it comes in a 50 ml bottle. The pen that I use is a Kaweco Classic Sport with a medium nib. That's this right here, and I did it with an eyedropper conversion. This is a really neat kind of pen, and I should note that this is actually done with a Kaweco that's a couple of years old. So the new ones, the ones that we're stocking now at gouletpens.com, are a little bit different. The nib has a breather hole on it, and the nib is just a tiny bit smoother than this one here, but I don't think that's going to affect too much in terms of the ink review anyway. I decided that I'm gonna mix it up with the pens. I know scientifically it would be better if I standardized both the paper and the pens for doing ink reviews, but I will be completely honest with you, after doing probably 20, 30, 40, 100 reviews with the same paper and the same pen, it's going to get pretty gosh darn boring and the inks are all going to kind of blend together. So part of what is going to keep it exciting for me and keep it fresh is mixing up the pens, because geez, I love playing with different pens, and when doing videos it would be pretty boring if I showed you the same pen in every video, especially because the color accuracy of the video is not always the best. The picture that I'm going to post on my blog is going to be the one that's the most color accurate, not necessarily in the video. So the video is going to be more for showing off the pens, explaining how my impressions were when doing the test and things like that, getting a little bit more of my personality and excitement across. So that's why I've kind of chosen to go that route. So I'm just going to kind of switch it up and do whatever pen that kind of strikes me in the moment. The paper I'm always going to keep consistent. I got Rhodia dot pad 80 gram white paper. That's not going to change. I love the paper, works great, really consistently made, and I'm fine with that. Right here I've got a smear test. The smear test, though it's not an incredibly reliable test, it does give you some idea as to the dry time of the ink. Now here I have 5, 10, 20, and 30 seconds. Basically what I do is I take the pen and I do 3 little ticks. I may do 2, I may do 4, I don't know, who knows. I may switch it up. And I wait 5 seconds and then swipe it with my finger, my dry finger. The reason it's not the most reliable test is because depending on, when you're just doing these small tick marks, depending on how much pressure I put, I can actually lay down more or less ink on the page, and so it's not incredibly reliable, but it is kind of somewhat of a basis of what the dry time might be. I think what I'm going to end up doing is giving more of a summary of a dry time down at the bottom and kind of interpret maybe through my overall writing what the dry time is going to be. I'm not just going to go off the smear test, but that will be a factor into my interpretation. The next I have the drip test, and what the drip test is meant to do is to show the waterproofness, or the water resistance at least, of the given ink. So I do this crisscross pattern, I draw it on there, let it dry for a good period of time, and then I drop 2 or 3 droplets of water on there, let it sit for at least a good couple of minutes, and then soak it up with a paper towel and see kind of what's left. This is kind of meant to be if you are writing in a journal and you happen to spill a couple of drips of coffee or some water, you know, something like that onto your writing. I think that's the most common scenario that we're going to run into when writing or drawing or whatever, is getting a couple of drips on whatever we're doing. So this will show you how well it'll hold up, which, as you can see here with the Lamy turquoise, didn't do so great. The next test here, this one may be the most confusing. This is a swab test, and what I do is I take a cotton swab and I start at the number 1 and I swab all the way across the page. Let it dry. Then I take the swab again, start at the number 2 and go over top of the number 1 swab. Let that dry, and then number 3 I go across again. Now what the heck is this supposed to do? This is meant to be kind of a representation of what the degree of saturation of the ink is like. So for example, you can kind of use it in a way as a scale for if your pen writes maybe a little bit drier, and you know that, then you can kind of gear more towards the number 1 of what you can expect your ink will look like. If you've got a really wet pen, maybe a fatter nib, a calligraphy or something like that, you might expect that it would look closer to the 2 or maybe the 3. This is just meant to kind of show you how different the ink can look just on top of itself based on how wet your pen is writing. That's what that's meant to be. Now, once I've done those tests, I kind of take and I summarize what my feeling is. Now I may take and I write with the pen some more, just kind of on my own, stuff that I'm not going to maybe post on the blog, just so I can get a feel for the ink. The reason I don't post everything that I write is because I have to color adjust and do a lot of, you know, post-production type stuff with these reviews to get them color accurate on the blog, and that's a lot of work to do that. So I don't want to do that with any more than I have to, and I don't want to show you and overwhelm you with any more information than I have to. So I kind of summarize and I go the dry time. Okay, what's the dry time like? I'll kind of give like a time based on what I found from the smear test, but also I'll kind of go with, like, you know, short dry time, or maybe medium dry time, medium long. This is kind of what I put for the Lamy turquoise, was medium long. So it's not the longest dry time out there, but it's not necessarily medium road. It's kind of on the long side. So I'll kind of use a general, just a descriptive scale like that. The degree of saturation, I put this as a medium because it's not like using a Sharpie marker or something where there's no variation in color at all when you write. There is definitely some variation, not the most I've ever seen. So I put medium as the degree of saturation. That's basically just how much variance are you going to get in the coloring when you write. The water resistance, well, that pretty much speaks for itself with the drip test, but I summarize it up there, there at the bottom anyway. Ease of cleaning. This is once I've used it and I see how easy the ink is to clean out of the pen. That's something that's not talked about in a whole lot of reviews, but I think is something really important to point out. So I plan to kind of give you just a basic, you know, easy, medium, hard, you know, ease of cleaning out of your pen. Because, you know, I like to change colors a lot, and the ease of cleaning of an ink, honestly, is sometimes what might determine what ink I want to use next. If I know I've got an ink that's really hard to clean out of the pen, I may kind of stay away from it for a little while. Anyway, then the shading. Shading is kind of along the same lines as the degree of saturation. Not necessarily the same thing. Shading more has to do with, when I'm writing with it, how intense is the degree of variation with the given pen that I'm seeing. The saturation maybe refers more to you know, how opaque, I guess you could say, the ink is, like how dark and thick and how much can you see the paper through it. And then the shading is more the variance between the light and the dark. I know I kind of explained that with saturation too. So those two are kind of interchangeable, I guess, a little bit, but I'm still going to break them out separately. Just because saturation is not a term that's used a whole lot, but shading is something that maybe is something that more people are looking for. And then lastly, I'm going to have the flow. How does the ink write with the given pen? You know, I use my pens a lot. I'm fairly familiar with how they all write. So I wanted to kind of show basically, you know, in that given pen, how do I feel you know, is this ink flowing smoothly? Is it writing a little drier? In this given pen, I felt that the flow was on the wet side. You have dry and then you have wet based on, you know, how much ink you feel is coming out of the pen. And that basically is the review. And I may elaborate a little bit more. I may go on and do some special stuff like splatters or ink and water pictures or drawings or some artistic kind of stuff like that. But I just wanted to kind of explain what my overall formatting that I'm planning to do for ongoing reviews. Of course, it's always subject to change. I may come up with better things. I may change some things. But I feel like this is pretty much a decent format for me to move forward with. So I hope this format is helpful to you. I know that I'm not going to get everything for all people, but the most important thing is I've got to keep something exciting for me, because I've got about 350 different inks at my disposal, and going through that many inks, it can be easy to fall into a rut or a routine and to kind of lose your passion about it. So I'm striking a compromise between being educated and entertaining about it, and also keeping things fresh for me so that I can stay excited about it and continue to want to do them. Because I know that it's more important for me to just do them than it is to try to figure out some kind of everlasting process. So anyway, I think I found something here that's going to work. I'm going to give these a shot, try doing some reviews and see how they go, see how you all like them. If you have any questions, you can always email me at brian@gouletpens.com. Thanks a lot, and